Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
What's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America? You said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda. You said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because, the Cold War has been over for 20 years.
Russia does continue to battle us in the UN time and time again. I have clear eyes on this. I'm not going to wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to Russia or Mr. Putin, and I'm certainly not going to say to him, I'll give him more flexibility after the election.
Yeah, tell Vladimir that I'll have a lot more flexibility after the election. Remember that oldie but goodie. Joining us now is Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you, Steve?
Good to talk to you. Okay, so that aside, we know how wrong Barack Obama was on Russia. Today he came out and he basically laid the blame at Putin's doorstep for what happened, the downing of the plane, talked about sophisticated training and weapons being given to the rebels, separatists, who we hold responsible now, apparently, for firing that rocket. What are the repercussions going to be?
Well, that was pretty unclear from the president's statement, and I would say if you were Putin watching that, you got a little bit of a slap on the wrist, but you didn't really get a sense that you were supposed to get out of the Ukraine or stop providing these weapons to the separatists immediately, or there'd be consequences, or tell the separatists at the very least you can't be shooting at airplanes. So I thought maybe the president will follow up. I hope he does. I hope he makes clear to Putin sort of what's acceptable, all of this is unacceptable. But I would say it looks to me more like it's heading for slap on the wrist, a lot of international consultations, sadness about the civilians lost, and then will Putin really pay a price? I'm a little doubtful.
It was Obama, basically, like I said, laid it at Putin's doorstep, but didn't say that he's responsible. Senator Ron Johnson earlier in the show said Putin is responsible, no doubt about it. He said that over and over again. The Pentagon wouldn't even, when asked their press briefing earlier, when they were asked about Putin, he really ran away from mentioning Putin, saying, there's an investigation, et cetera. So I'm with you. I mean, even if the investigation comes back and it's laid at Putin's doorstep, we could look for a couple of more targeted sanctions, and that's it, and Putin gets away with killing, 295 people. Right,
and then suddenly the occupation of part of the Ukraine goes on, and the assaults on Ukrainian troops presumably go on.
But Bill, didn't the administration, I think through the State Department press briefing, if not the White House press briefing, several weeks ago, tout Ukraine as a victory, as a bright spot in the president's foreign policy?
Well, we've mobilized the international community for some extremely limited sanctions. I mean, Russia is one of the most embarrassing, obviously, aspects of Obama's foreign policy. Also directly implicates Hillary Clinton. I mean, she was the great advocate of the reset. She's the person who visibly launched it in 2009 and defends it to this day. And so it's just one of, unfortunately, many examples around the world where the Obama policy, the Obama-Clinton, Biden, et cetera policy, we're now seeing the consequences of it. It's funny, weakness, the U.S. is a very strong nation, and so we can do stupid things and be weak, and probably it doesn't have an effect right away. But now you look at the Middle East, look at Russia, look actually at China, and you see what the world starts to look like when people think everywhere, friends and enemies both, think the U.S. is weak and in retreat.
Why would the president, and it happened yesterday too, I don't remember who in the administration said it, but today he definitely said that this is a European tragedy, and citing the flight pattern, the country of origin, the destination, the people on board, what countries they were from. Why would he go out of his way to say that this is a European tragedy?
Well, presumably to try to, make it seem as if the Europeans have primary responsibility for dealing with it, just as he wants the Iraqis to deal with ISIS, that he wants the Syrians somehow, I suppose, to deal with the civil war that's consuming their country. And the only country that doesn't get to deal with things on its own is Israel, where we continually harass and nag them not to do certain things that they judge are necessary for their national well-being.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get to Israel right now. In fact, the president letting us all know that he spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu today, and that while he supports the right of Israel to go after those tunnels and the rockets, there's always a but. There was a but in the statement he made yesterday, and there was a but today, and that is the concern over civilian casualties. And I hearken back, as I've done all show long, to Marco Rubio yesterday, who spelled it out on the floor of the Senate in an 18-minute speech, saying that any and all casualties to civilians are the responsibility of Hamas. Why on earth can't we have a president who would say that?
He should say that. And furthermore, think about it, implies that he's nagging and finger-wagging at the Israelis about civilian casualties. Does he really seriously think the Israeli military doesn't care about civilian casualties, that they don't have the most elaborate code of conduct in war of any military, maybe even more elaborate than ours, to try to prevent civilian casualties in very difficult situations? I mean, do they really need a lecture from Barack Obama about how to fight humanely? That's what's so annoying about this. It doesn't have much effect, I suppose, but it's this kind of moral preening that sitting thousands of miles away, he can wag a finger at Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been extremely careful and prudent in doing what he had to do here to secure his own civilians' safety. That's what's so annoying about it.
Well, what happens now in the context of Israel? The president also said that he wants a ceasefire declared, the reenactment or reestablishment of the ceasefire that was established in 2012. I mean, for crying out loud, can you imagine, Bill, if it was Israel who said no to the Egyptian ceasefire once, and then on a UN brokered humanitarian timeout broke that as well? What Obama would have gone nuts, and the State Department would have gone nuts.
Right, and the ceasefire of 2012 seems to have been consistent with Hamas building up a huge rocket arsenal and building tunnels whose only purpose is to make possible terror attacks on Israel. So that is not a satisfactory status quo ante. Obviously, everyone would like a ceasefire, but first, Israel has to make sure that their civilians are not going to be rocketed for the next few months, and that they're not going to be subject to terrorist attacks through tunnels. So this notion that the faster a ceasefire happens, the better. Of course, everyone would like killing to stop, but why does anyone have any confidence that Hamas will truly obey a ceasefire rather than use it as a pause to rearm and to rebuild the tunnels than before? Now, incidentally, the other thing that the administration has done, and this has been a little bit below the radar, but Secretary Kerry, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, they both said Qatar could be very helpful. Qatar is not a helpful player in this region. They're very close to Hamas. Egypt, which wants to be helpful, has been getting kind of neglected by the administration. They don't like Egypt much, but Egypt actually has an interest in curbing Hamas and is working closely with the Israelis and is the appropriate middleman for any deal that would happen. They've done it before. They're obviously the country with the most immediate proximity and the most interest in this, but the administration prefers to deal with this kind of Hamas-friendly government in Qatar.
Right, and why don't they like Egypt? Because Egypt, the current regime in Egypt, threw out Hillary's favorite and Obama's favorite Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, that must be part of it. And the current regime in Egypt has its problems, but I got to say, on this issue, they've been pretty helpful and pretty responsive.
They have, and last time around it was Mubarak who, if I'm not mistaken, negotiated the ceasefire. Or helped in past conflicts with Israel, but Morsi never would have. Morsi would have been, supplying Hamas with more weapons as we speak if he were in power in Egypt.
Yeah, I think actually in 2012 Morsi.
Yeah, Morsi was gone, wasn't he? Yeah.
No, I think he was there, and I think he was helpful. And look, if whoever's helpful is helpful, I don't have an issue with that. But in either case, it was Egypt. That's the point.
I meant Mubarak was gone.
Mubarak was gone.
Yeah.
But it's the Egyptian military really has the ability to help here and to shut off access to arms, and so it's kind of crazy to exclude them from the talks. But that's all, and those are the details of diplomacy. But you're right. The bigger picture, I also was struck by this. I mean, on the whole, I'm not that unhappy. I mean, Obama's pretty much stayed out of it, which is good in this case. But the degree to which he feels compelled to sort of give little lectures to Netanyahu and to the Israelis is a little bit offensive, honestly.
Well, it's interesting, your two comments. Putin got a slap on the wrist, and Netanyahu keeps getting finger waggings. That's pretty interesting. One more. What did Barack Obama do yesterday? 30 seconds worth of a comment on the plane crash, or the plane downing yesterday, and then continuing with the event as if nothing had happened, and then going on to fundraisers hopping a plane and going on to fundraisers. And he's gotten some criticism for this. But I honestly, Bill, I don't think this man cares about what anybody says about him anymore.
Apparently not. I guess he likes the fundraisers, or he thinks it'll help the Democrats.
30-something grand a plate to go see Obama last night.
Well, he gets to hang out with, the wealthy and the high and mighty of New York, and I guess maybe he enjoys their company more than actually sitting around the Situation Room being president. Someone said to me the other day, who's been in past White Houses, that it just looks like he's bored. He doesn't like being president. It's unpleasant. You got to make tough choices. You got to talk to people on the phone you don't like talking to very much. They don't always do what you want. You go to one of these fundraisers. I've been to them when I was Dan Quayle's chief of staff. It's great. Everyone loves you, Mr. President. They're thrilled to sit next to you. He
harkens back to when he was being hailed as, walking on water when he won the nomination. So I guess that's what it's all about.
They probably think at these fundraisers he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. How does that look now?
Oh, my gosh. Bill, have a great weekend. Thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure, Steve.
Bye-bye. Bill Kristol, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, remember, he won the Nobel Peace Prize just for being Barack Obama. We're coming back with Give Me 5 on the Steve Malzberg Show.